Welcome to Straight No Chaser. So grab a glass and join your hosts, your girl Ann BZ, Pastor C, Thin Bad, and the Chief.
Hello. Welcome to Straight No Chaser, where we never dilute the issues. We only serve the hard stuff. It's your girl, Aunt Beezy, and as always, I'm here with my fabulous co-host, Thin Bad, who is connecting with us, and the Chief.
Hey there.
Pastor C couldn't join us tonight, but, we always know how to keep that conversation going, and it's always top shelf. So we are 25 days into the longest federal shutdown in U.S. history. Just before Christmas, President Trump and the Senate had an agreement in principle that he would sign a funding resolution that did not include border wall funding to keep the government running. Part of that agreement included provisions to hold further decisions about border security. This agreement was put forth by the Republican-controlled Senate, but unfortunately, the president's leadership was questioned by conservative media pundits, and he decided to have the now famous White House meeting with, quote-unquote, Chuck and Nancy. During the meeting, the president proudly announced that he would shut the government down if he did not receive funding for the wall. The same he declared over 200 times that Mexico would pay for. He claimed drugs, thugs, and terrorists were pouring into the country through the southern border. The president refused to sign the agreement, and the government eventually shut down. 25 days later, employees are working without pay, and critical services, including airline safety and food inspections, have been impacted. Employees and citizens, regardless of their race, religion, or political affiliation, are being impacted, and everyone is wondering when it will end. So, in order to help us navigate this conversation, we had a guest, which was one of our congressmen, Mr. Steven Horsford, but unfortunately he was called into a meeting that has to do with, coincidentally, the shutdown. So we're going to just keep this conversation going. We still have a couple special guests who are going to call in and help lead this conversation, but let's just jump into it. So we're 25 days in, and I think everybody can name some concerns off the top of their heads with the entire federal government being shut down. But what are the most significant risks to this shutdown, do you think, Chief?
Well, there are a lot of things that are going south right now. You hear the concerns about air traffic control, the border agents, the food inspections, Secret Service, DHS. And understand, a lot of these dedicated workers are still on the job. They're still showing up, but they're not being paid. And so that is one of the biggest concerns right now. And who would expect to go to work and not get paid for a whole day's work? Now, I know, here's the interesting thing from the millennial perspective. I know you were sharing with me before we came on the air some thoughts that I know Cardi B and Snoop Dogg had even weighed in on this thing. So even the celebrities are now weighing in on this, because I don't think anyone would disagree that border safety is a priority in terms of keeping the homeland safe. I don't think anybody would argue with that. But I certainly think that there has to be a way to work through the issues without putting over 800,000 people at risk of literally starving if they don't get paychecks soon. I mean, not everyone has office buildings and yachts and all these other things that allow them to be able to miss a paycheck or two or three. So I think this is something that is getting out of hand, and I'm hoping that soon there'll be a solution to this. But I don't know. I'm trying to see. Thinbad, have you been able to join us yet? Because I know he was running a little late and was getting ready to join us. Are you there with us, Thinbad? Okay. So he's still not on, so we're going to keep it moving. But I think that we really need to make sure that we don't overlook the fact that there are a lot of people that are having a lot of challenges around this.
Well, I think that, one of the things that people don't always remember is that we're not only talking about, when we're talking about, government officials, government workers, a lot of people jump to Congress and stuff like that. But we also have, people who are barely, not everybody who works for the federal government is on a great salary. You have to remember there are janitors that work for the government. You have our postal workers, people on hourly paychecks who are living paycheck to paycheck who are also not getting paid. So I think that's one thing that a lot of people, I'm not going to say they forget because it's been brought up a couple of times, but I think instantly when we think of the government shutdown, we think of the people who work on the Hill, but there are so many other people who don't make as much money as them who are losing out on their money as well. And it happened right before Christmas. So that really sucks. Yeah, it's a really bad situation. But we actually have a caller. So let's connect to them.
And Carly, you're on Straight No Chaser. Are you there, caller?
Me, Deborah Robinson.
How are you?
Hello. I'm great. Yes, I live in Mitchellville, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C., and I am a federal government contractor that's affected by the shutdown currently. I provide support to the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, and to other agencies such as Patent and Trademark Office. Mm-hmm. And yes, we are affected by the shutdown. Basically, the work we provide is a lot of IT services and management services. And so what's happening right now here in D.C. is that people are at their homes. They don't know what to do. And so what you see when you drive around are people in food lines, which I never thought I would see, like I saw tonight. A church was providing food to people, and they were standing in line in 30-degree temperatures.
Wow.
So that's kind of what we're seeing here now. Some of the restaurants are opening up for people to feed them if they need to come in and eat, and to also if they want to take food home to their family. What you have to show is that you have to show your federal ID badge.
Wow. So let me ask a couple of questions from as a CEO of your company and as a person providing those services. How has this impacted your ability to, for example, to take care of your employees? Let's start there, and then we'll work through some other questions.
Okay, so what's done now is you have to furlough your employees, those that you can hold on to.
Wow.
You do. So what I've been doing is reviewing the federal acquisition laws to see what impact this has on my company, to see when the shutdown is over, if the government is going to reimburse me for any of the expenses that I incurred with retaining my staff.
Wow. So just for lay people that may not understand the whole contracting world, now, when the government says that we are now shut down, do you get paid do you get paid at all? Do you get a partial payment? Do you get an IOU? How does that work for a contractor?
Okay, for a contractor, what you get is a notification from your contracting officer representative that there is a government shutdown. So that means you cannot show up in the federal building. You will not have access there. And that the federal employees will not be there, so you have no one to basically report to.
Wow.
Wow.
So, a question that I have is, a lot of that area, the Washington, D.C., and the metropolitan area surrounding it, like Maryland, Virginia, a lot of the economy, a lot of the people that live there and, provide school for their kids, a lot of the families who work for the government live there. So have you seen it affect your direct economy, like where you live as well?
Great question. Deborah, are you still with us? Deborah, you still with us?
Are we having
Well, her cell phone may have dropped, so we'll wait for her to call back. But go ahead. We'll continue this discussion.
Right.
But
so, Thinbad, I see you there, and I hear you in the background. So, as a former politician, can you help us make sense of this?
Public servant is a different no. It's my scale was on a different level, but it's on a state level. It's the equivalent to not having a budget. So if you didn't have a budget, nothing is getting funded. So nothing is happening, and everything attached to that is going to be a problem. You have different agencies that are affected that get federal funding, much like the caller was just saying about contractual work that doesn't happen if you don't have anybody to report to or any funds that are able to go out. So people can't really work for free. I think she's back.
Oh, yes. Great. How are you, Deborah?
Perfect.
Thank you for calling back. We were riveted on your words.
Well, yeah, I could still hear you guys. I don't know why you couldn't hear me. But
that's okay.
Something happened. Yeah.
I thought they tried to shut down your phone.
That's right. So
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you fine. And so you were just kind of describing that whole process, and you're not allowed in the building. But Ann Beasy has a question.
So my question was, before it all got disconnected and discombobulated, was, as a person who lives in one of the suburbs of Washington, D.C., we used to live there, and a lot of the people that do live there are federal government employees or some sort of government employee. So have you seen it affect, your home environment, like your state's economy directly yet? Like, have you seen those kind of changes?
Yes. Talking to other people that are employees of the federal government, the uncertainty. The uncertainties about how they're going to pay their bill, because now it's 26 days.
Right.
This is
almost a month.
Time. I think, the last time it was 13 days. So this time it's the longest time that we've ever experienced it.
Wow.
So, happening right before Christmas, when people enjoy Christmas, they did not anticipate this lasting this long. So now it's at the point where they're not getting a paycheck.
Wow.
So now the effect is really happening now.
So as you start to get word of an impending government shutdown, do you start? Well, kind of walk me through what you do. I don't want to assume anything. When you get the word that there is an impending government shutdown, first and foremost, how much word do you get in advance? And then how do you prepare as the proprietor? And then how do you help your employees prepare? And I guess the third part of my question is, when you start to see signs that your employees are impacted, what options do you have at that point when you're starting to see the whole morale piece going south because of this whole terrible situation?
Okay, so the first question was, how do I get notified?
Yes, and how much advance notice do you receive?
You don't receive any advance notice. We actually received an email on the 26th of December for the shutdown that started on the 22nd.
Wow.
So there's no advance other than what you see on the news.
That's
terrible. So the contracting officers don't reach out in advance and say, hey, this is coming, you need to get prepared?
No.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
And what she's saying also is that not only did they not get advance notice, they didn't even know until after